Now, Specialist Chris will update his notes, update the management site, save the case with the status of open, and create a follow-up time. Let's start with Chris updating his notes. Before saving, Chris needs to indicate the current stage of the management site. Toxicol has many unique ways of capturing information in real time. Chris is going to select the status and management site as referred to by Poison Center to healthcare facility. At this time, this is the best selection that reflects the information from the call. Specialist Chris is ready to click the Save Case icon. This is the Save Case window. First, Specialist Chris is going to select the status of the case. In this situation, we are selecting the status as open because we would like to follow up at a later time. The default status is open. When cases are saved with the status of open, notes will be saved to historical so they cannot be edited by other specialists. He will then select the priority level of the case. The options available in the priority drop-down are user configurable. Now we are going to set the follow-up time. Clicking the yellow exclamation mark sets the follow-up time to immediate. This is not the desired follow-up time for this case. Let's clear that now. Clicking the Clear Follow-up button erases the follow-up time. Here are a few of the common follow-up times. Select 30 minutes. Notice how the follow-up time is set from the original start time. This only happens for new cases. We are now saving the case with an open status and the notes will be pushed to historical. Next time the case is open, we will review those changes. Specialist Chris is currently reviewing his acetaminophen cases. Just then, a call comes in from Robert McCall, an RN at Bayview Medical Center. He is calling in regards to our patient Melanie Hutchins. Again, Recent Cases window has been automatically configured to display when a call comes in through Higher Ground call integration. Robert currently has 3 open cases that came from his medical center. This Poison Center will be able to quickly open and review any cases that came in from the healthcare facility's phone number. Let's listen to a few seconds of the call now. Chris is going to find the Hutchins case in the Recent Cases window. Notice he is unselecting the phone number, so Robert's phone number is not included in the search. He then types Hutchins in the CID name field and presses Enter. Chris then loads the case by double-clicking on it. Notice the red flashing call recording indicator icon. Let's associate the current call to this case. It looks like Specialist Thomas K. was not able to reach anyone and left a note for Chris. We can review historical notes and see Chris's notes from the previous call. Specialist Chris has now reviewed the case entry screen for any new developments, and we can get back to the current conversation between Robert and Chris. We have now heard some lab information, and we will be using Toxicol's lab modules to capture that information. The Poison Center where Specialist Chris works requires vitals be captured in the lab section. These labs are highly configured to each Poison Center's needs. Click on the Labs module button to display the Labs module window. Find the available template and double-click. Each lab entry requires a date and time of sample. The date can be entered manually or selected by clicking on the Display Calendar three-dot lookup. Now select the appropriate date. If the time is known, fill in the time. Now Chris can fill in the lab results. Pressing Tab after each entry. He is now ready to save, and Chris will select Done. And then save by selecting Yes. The Labs module for Chris's workstation has been configured to prompt the user if they would like to paste the lab results in the Historical Notes section. Selecting No will save the lab and withhold pasting. Let's select Yes and see those changes. The entered lab work can now be quickly viewed in the Notes section. Additionally, the Labs button now displays one entry in parentheses. Based on the information provided by Robert, there is another substance to be entered along with an additional clinical effect. Let's enter those in now. We suspect that Xanax is now the main substance, but do not know until the UDS and other lab results are available. Let's add the new substance and change the number of Roxasets. We are going to add Xanax through Toxicol's Historical Substance feature. Clicking the Historical Substance icon allows for reselecting a previously used substance. The verbatim field must still be entered. Chris has recalled that he had a previous case where the substance saved was Xanax. The Historical Substance window saves substance searches on a per-session basis. When Toxicol is closed and reopened, the list is cleared. Let's now add the estimated quantity, formulation, and certainty. The quantity was 20 tablets. Remember, you can type tabs and press Tab to select the drop-down item. We know that the certainty was an estimate. We are now going to save the substance and edit Roxasets. Next, we are going to capture the new clinical effect based on heart rate. Remember that unknown, if related, is both checkboxes. Specialist Chris will find the EKG that Robert sent and link it to the current case in just a moment. Chris just needs a few readouts from the EKG and is going to capture the QRS duration and adjusted QT wave with the key cuts function. Key cuts are quick snippets of commonly used information to be captured in the notes. We will be using the quick EKG key cut. The lab module also has the ability to capture this information, but this example's intention is to introduce the key cuts concept. Chris will now select the key cut button and select Quick EKG. The key cut window provides a preview of the information that will be pasted into the notes. Select OK. We have now heard a provided therapy from the call with Robert, and Chris needs to add the therapy that was provided to our patient. This section of the video will cover an example of each possible therapy type before finally selecting the correct therapy for our case in progress. Let's start by clicking on the Therapy Selection area. Toxicol captures therapies that are of type recommended, performed, recommended and performed, and recommended and known not performed. Let's show an example of each type. The recommended type would be used when the specialist has recommended the therapy be completed. The performed type would be selected if the therapy has been completed with no recommendation from the specialist. The recommended and performed type is denoted by checking the R and P columns. This selection is used when a therapy was recommended and then performed at a later time. The recommended and known not performed is used when a recommendation was given by the specialist and it is known that this recommended therapy was not performed. Checking other combinations will yield an invalid response. Let's demonstrate how an invalid response looks. Notice how the selected therapies are color-coded to each therapy type. Recommended is displayed in black. Recommended and not performed is displayed in blue. Recommended and performed is displayed in magenta. Performed is displayed as red. An invalid response will display as invalid. Chris will now fix these entries to coincide with our case. IV fluids were given without a recommendation from Specialist Chris. The call has ended and Specialist Chris will link the EKG file that the hospital has sent to Chris's Poison Center. The Link Case Files button allows specialists to attach files. This is the Link Case window. Click Browse to locate the file to be attached. Toxicol has the ability to attach any file type. By default, Toxicol always displays PDF files. Let's view all file types. And find the EKG file. This is an SCP file that is common to EKGs. Select the file to be associated and select Open. Chris will now add a meaningful file description. And will now add the file to the case. When the case is saved to the network, Toxicol will automatically upload a copy of this file to the shared folder location. If you would like to view the file, you can review it by double-clicking or clicking the Open button. Toxicol can open the file viewer for any file type. For example, Adobe Reader for PDF files, Microsoft Word for Word documents, and so on. Toxicol requires the necessary associated viewer to open the file. In our example, Chris's workstation has a program that is installed on his computer that can view the .scp file extension. Let's load the Melanie Hutchins EKG by double-clicking. After Chris has finished reviewing the EKG, he will close the program and get back to Toxicol. The file has already been added and we can select Close. Notice the link Case Files now has a number 1 in parentheses. Specialist Chris will now update the Management Site section, add to the medical narrative, and then save the case with a new follow-up time. Let's start by updating the Management Site to admit it to Non-Critical Care Unit. In our example, the initial healthcare facility is Bayview. Begin typing the facility in the field and then press Enter to display the Healthcare Facility lookup window. Notice how our search will limit the selection. Selecting All will clear the search and display all healthcare facilities. If only the phone number is known, the search will limit based on the number entered. Chris can now select Bayview and double-click. Let's update the notes and then save the case. He has now updated his notes and presses the Save Case icon. Chris could select the follow-up time of 2 hours, but for this demonstration he will click on the follow-up 3-dot lookup and select the time manually. This window should be familiar. The hour arrow has added 2 hours. Select OK. Let's catch up to Chris in 2 hours and see how Ms. Hutchins is doing.